Indian No More, Chapter 13, Budlong Blues. By Labor Day, everyone was ready for school to start, the parents, the kids, and everyone else living on 58th Place. Sunshine covered the sidewalks as our neighborhood gang of six, Keith, Addie, Anthony, Philip, Pee-wee, and me, headed toward Budlong Elementary School. It was just after the holiday weekend. The Santa Ana winds blew like the Chinook winds back home, only hotter. Instead of fall rains, 58th Place kept its sun and sported green grass, fresh trees, and colorful tropical flowers. Anthony, Keith, and I were entering the school as fifth graders. Anthony was in Miss Howard's class. Keith and I had Miss Davies. Pee-wee and Addie were also in different classrooms as third graders, and Philip, being a seventh grader, left us at the entrance and headed toward John Moore Middle School, farther down the block. Too bad we're not in the same classroom, Addie said to Pee-wee, but you'll love Miss Clark. I can't believe Budlong has 2 classrooms for each grade, Pee-wee said. Well, how many classrooms did your Indian school have? Keith asked. 2, I answered. That's the same as Budlong. No, 2 classrooms in the entire school, I replied. Back on the res, the Indian Agency School crowded grades 1 through 7 into the before the turn of the century schoolhouse. The younger kids, grade 1 through 4, occupied one room, and grades 5 through 7 crammed into the second. Pine trees outlined the schoolyard, and the fish-loaded creek flowed behind. The old fence had collapsed from lack of maintenance, but the school's bright yellow exterior was painted by the students themselves. The rain puddles in the fall and the robins singing outside the windows in the spring made us all want to be outdoors instead of reading and writing. This school was nothing like that. Budlong Elementary stretched the length of a city block. The huge 3-story red brick building towered over the playground and was surrounded by a chain-link fence. There were 1 or 2 trees on the playground, but nothing we could climb. Worn-out asphalt, not grass, covered the ground with cracked yellow lines indicating where to play foursquare, hopscotch, and dodgeball. Rows of swings, monkey bars, and 2 lonely slides sat inside what looked like a giant sandbox. Addie walked along with Pee-wee, proudly swinging her metal Disney lunchbox. Pee-wee swung her paper bag lunch, just as proud. This school is huge, she said. Students buzzed around, screaming and yelling, talking and running. Suddenly, a loud bell rang from a massive building. I jumped. Everyone froze. Another bell blared a minute later. Everyone scurried up to one of the yellow lines, filing up in rows by classroom, boys on one side and girls on the other. Come on, Regina, said Keith, rushing past me. We need to line up before we get in trouble. I scooted into the girls' line for Miss Davies' class, across from him. Teachers poured out of the building, each headed straight for their students. Miss Davies, wearing a pretty powder blue dress with a poofy skirt and wide white belt, strolled toward us. Just follow the girl in front of you, whispered Keith. A girl put her finger to her mouth. Shush! No talking in line. The day went by all right until Miss Davies assigned the line shusher to me as my classroom buddy. I wasn't crazy about that. The line shusher told me her name was Alice and scrunched her nose every time she looked at me, and she only talked to her friends. I wanted to be with Keith instead. After all, he had become my friend that summer, and we were in the same class. I stopped him on our way out to recess. What do you want to do at recess? I asked. Keith nervously looked down at his sneakers. I can't play with you, Regina, he said, grabbing his jacket from the classroom hook. I stared at him in shock. Why? He glanced at some boys waiting for him at the door. They giggled and pointed at us. I just can't, okay? Then he left. I stood there not knowing what to do. Girls don't play with boys, silly, said Alice, who had annoyingly appeared at my side. And you can't play with me either. I'm already late for foursquare. She scampered out the door, snickering with her friends. Some classroom buddy she was. Run along, Regina, Miss Davies said, urging me outside. But I didn't want to go outside. Apparently, boys and girls didn't play with one another at school here. Break the rule and get teased. It was obvious Keith didn't want that. I finally went and looked for Pee-wee. She always made friends easier than I did. I didn't know if it was being older than my classmates because of my early birthday or because, like Mama said, I thought about things a lot. Sure enough, I found Pee-wee laughing and jumping rope with a few girls from her class. I ended up strolling around the perimeter of the playground. I watched boys bounce a ball against a large wall and girls hopping front and back on hopscotch squares. I stood nearby wondering if they'd invite me to join in, but they didn't. Life at Budlong Elementary was not like 58th Place, and not at all like life back home. No trees, no creek, no robins, no playing with anyone you wanted to, and lots of other rules I didn't understand. I wasn't sure I'd ever figure out how to live here.